So, here I am, 10 years into a marriage I thought was rock solid, and suddenly everything's unraveling. It's funny, right? How you can think you've got everything figured out, only to realize you were just wearing blinders the whole time. Dana and I used to be that couple. You know, the ones everyone envied. We traveled together, ran marathons, and shared hobbies like hiking and cooking. It was perfect, or at least it felt like it. But then life happened. I got sucked into work, long hours, more responsibility, you know the drill. It's like I wasn't slacking on our marriage, but I guess in her eyes, I wasn't doing enough either. She started getting different, snappy. Like everything I did irritated her. I'd come home from work, exhausted but ready to at least try to make conversation, and she'd be glued to her phone or watching some trashy TV show. If I even tried to talk about anything, she'd roll her eyes and say, "Do we really need to talk about this right now?" Then there were the complaints. Constant complaints. First, it was the usual. "We don't go out like we used to," or "Why don't you plan anything anymore?" Okay, maybe she had a point. But then it turned into personal attacks, shit like, "You've become so predictable, Victor. You're boring." Boring. That hit hard. I mean, I never thought I'd be that guy. The one who gets called boring by his own wife. But there it was out in the open like a slap in the face. So I tried. God, I tried. I went and booked this romantic weekend getaway. Something to shake things up. Maybe that's what we needed, a little reset. I thought it'd remind us both of what we used to be. You know what she said? "I have work. I can't just drop everything for a vacation." And then came the excuses. Always the damn excuses. That's when the late nights started. "Work's been crazy, babe," she'd say. "I have to stay late." Then the business trips. At first, I didn't think much of it. She'd always been ambitious, more career-driven than me, honestly. But then something changed. It was subtle at first, just little things. She'd come home from the gym, looking all dolled up, like she wasn't sweating at all. And she suddenly cared about what she wore, buying new clothes, and spending a ridiculous amount of time on her hair and makeup. Not for me, that's for sure. I'll admit, I brushed it off in the beginning. Told myself I was being paranoid. I didn't want to be that guy. The insecure husband thinking his wife is screwing around just because she's working late. But it started gnawing at me. There were times when she wouldn't even come home until the middle of the night. And when I asked her where she was, she'd get all defensive. No real explanations. Just bullshit like, "Don't you trust me? I'm working hard for us." Then there was that night. I'm sitting there, waiting for her to come home. She didn't answer my calls. I'm staring at my phone like an idiot, checking the time, sending another text. Nothing. By midnight, my stomach was in knots. I even convinced myself something terrible might have happened. Maybe a car accident, maybe who knows. But at the same time, that sick feeling of suspicion was creeping up my spine. When she finally waltzed in around 1 a.m., all I got was a shrug and some vague work emergency excuse. No apology, no explanation. The next day, she left for work like everything was normal, leaving her phone on the table. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. I shouldn't have gone through it. I should have respected her privacy, or whatever. But fuck that. Something was off, and I had to know. I'm not proud of it, but I opened her phone. There it was. A message from Clark. Fucking Clark. Some douchebag from her office. I didn't even know much about him, but I'd heard his name in passing enough times. The message wasn't even subtle. Something along the lines of, "Last night was fun. Let's do it again soon, winky face." With that stupid winky face. My heart dropped. It was like the ground opened up beneath me, and I was just falling. My hands were shaking, and my first instinct was to throw the phone against the wall. But I didn't. Instead, I took a deep breath and put it back exactly where I found it. I didn't confront her right away. But I needed to cool off first, figure out what the hell I was going to do next. Everything was swirling in my head. The late nights, the business trips, the way she'd been dressing up lately like she was trying to impress someone, just not me. It all made sense now. And fuck, I was angry. But more than that, I felt stupid. Stupid for not seeing it sooner. Stupid for believing all her lies. That night, when she got home, I didn't say a word. I just watched her. She didn't notice, of course. She was on her phone again, probably texting Clark, laughing at some inside joke they had. And there I was sitting across from her, trying not to lose my shit. It's crazy how quickly things can fall apart. One minute, you think you've got everything under control, and the next, your whole life feels like a joke. That's where I was, sitting in my own house, next to my own wife, who was clearly fucking someone else, and I couldn't even bring myself to say it out loud yet. But I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Alright, so after finding that flirty message from Clark, I couldn't just sit around and pretend everything was fine. My gut was screaming at me. This wasn't just a work thing. I had to know the truth. You know when you just know something's wrong, but you don't have all the pieces yet? That was me. Every time she came home late or said she had some work trip, it felt like she was taking a knife and twisting it a little deeper. It started with the little things. I noticed she was suddenly all about the gym again. Dana had always been into fitness, but she'd cooled off for a while. But now, she was spending hours there, coming home in these tight-ass outfits, looking way too good for someone who was just working out. And it wasn't just the gym. She started buying new clothes, expensive shit too. Dresses, lingerie, makeup she hadn't worn in years. And I'm sitting there like, who the hell is she doing this for? Because it sure as hell wasn't for me. I tried to shake it off, tried to tell myself I was being paranoid, but the more I watched, the more obvious it became. She was hiding something. One night, I made the mistake of trying to check her phone again. I'm not proud of it, but I had to. I needed proof. But when I went to unlock it, she'd changed her password. That was the moment it hit me. Whatever she was hiding, it was bad. I wasn't just imagining this shit. She was covering her tracks. That's when I realized I needed to step it up. I wasn't going to let her make a fool out of me. I needed the truth, no matter how ugly it was. So, I did what anyone in my position would do. I hired a private investigator. Yeah, I know it sounds extreme, but when you're losing your mind, watching your wife slip away, and you have no idea why, you'll do anything to find out. It wasn't cheap, but at this point, I didn't care. I needed answers. A few days later, I got them. And man, did it gut me. The PI sent over photos. Fucking photos. There she was, my wife of 10 years, sitting at a restaurant with Clark, holding his hand like some love-struck teenager. I kept scrolling through the pictures, and then there was them kissing, right there in public. No shame, no hesitation. Just two people who clearly didn't give a shit about anyone else. And it wasn't just a friendly peck either. This was a full-on, passionate kiss. The kind we hadn't shared in God knows how long. I stared at the photos for what felt like hours. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I just sat there numb. This was real. She was fucking this guy, and she wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. Everything I'd been dreading, all the suspicions, they were right in front of me in black and white. The next morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to confront her. I waited until she got home from one of her work trips. She walked in like nothing was wrong, smiling, making small talk like we were still this happy couple. That made my blood boil. How could she act so normal? So innocent? I waited until she sat down on the couch before I laid it all out. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just pulled out my phone, opened the pictures, and handed it to her. Care to explain this? Her face didn't even change. She looked at the pictures, then at me and just shrugged. Fucking shrugged. I'm not interested in doing this anymore, Victor, she said. Just like that. Cold as ice. No guilt, no remorse, no nothing. I'm tired of this boring life. You're not the same man I married. My jaw nearly hit the floor. What the hell are you talking about? She sighed, like she was annoyed that she even had to explain herself. When we got married, you were wild. Fun. We traveled, we partied, we did things. But now, you're just this predictable, boring guy who comes home from work and does the same thing every day. There's no excitement. No passion. I'm not interested in living like this. I could feel the anger rising in me, but I tried to stay calm. So, that's it? You cheat on me because you're bored? She didn't even flinch. I didn't cheat, Victor. I'm done with this marriage. I've already filed for divorce. That's when my world really crumbled. Divorce? She was already one step ahead of me. I was sitting here, trying to figure out if I could save what we had, and she was ready to throw it all away like it meant nothing. You filed for divorce? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I told you I'm done. I want to live fully, and I can't do that with you anymore. You're stuck in this monotonous existence, and I'm not wasting any more time trying to fix it. I sat there, stunned. She was done. Just like that. 10 years of marriage, the life we built together, the memories, the good and the bad, all of it meant nothing to her. She was ready to walk away, and she didn't even have the decency to feel bad about it. That was the moment something in me snapped. The pain, the betrayal, it was too much. I wasn't going to let her walk away without facing the consequences. Not after everything we'd been through. Not after what she did. You think you could just walk away like that? I asked, my voice cold. She crossed her arms and stared at me, unfazed. I'm not asking your permission, Victor. This is happening, whether you like it or not. I clenched my fists, trying to keep my temper in check. We'll see about that. She smirked like she'd already won. You don't have a choice. But she was wrong. I did have a choice. And I was about to make sure she regretted every second of betraying me. I never thought I'd be that guy. The one sitting in his living room, blindsided, trying to wrap his head around how the woman he loved, the woman he trusted for 10 years, could just throw it all away. When Dana told me she was done with the marriage, something in me broke. I felt hollow, like someone had taken a sledgehammer to my chest, but beneath the shock and pain, there was something darker growing. Anger. No, it was rage. 10 fucking years. 10 years of building a life together, of making plans, going through the highs and the lows. And for what? So she could fuck some asshole coworker because I didn't fit her fantasy anymore? Because I wasn't exciting enough? Every memory we had together suddenly felt like a joke. Every vacation, every night we spent talking about our future, it was all bullshit. She was done, she said. She was moving on without me. And she didn't even have the decency to pretend she cared. I was just another thing in her life she'd grown bored of. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it that easily. After the confrontation, I spent days and days replaying everything over and over in my head. How did it get to this point? Could I have seen the signs sooner? Could I have done something differently? But no matter how much I tried to piece it together, it always came back to one undeniable truth. Dana had chosen to betray me. She'd chosen to fuck around with Clark while I was out here, thinking we were still building a future together. And now she wanted to walk away without facing the consequences? Fuck that. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't just hurt, it transforms you. That pain, that deep, gut-wrenching agony, it twists into something else. For me, it became rage, a burning need to make her feel even a fraction of what I was going through. I wasn't going to let her just waltz off into the sunset with Clark. Not after everything we'd been through. Not after how she'd ripped my life apart. In the middle of all that anger and confusion, a thought crept into my head. Miriam, Dana's mom. Miriam and I had always gotten along. In fact, she was one of the few people who saw through Dana's bullshit. Over the years, Miriam had often mentioned to me how concerned she was about Dana's attitude, how she wasn't sure Clark was just a friend. Hell, she was the one who first suggested that maybe I should keep an eye on Dana's late-night work trips. At the time, I thought she was just being overprotective, but now I realized she'd been right all along. The more I thought about Miriam, the more the idea started to take shape. Maybe it was the wine, or maybe I was just desperate for a way to take control of the situation, but the thought of going to see her made sense. I could tell her about the divorce, but that wasn't really the point. No, deep down, I knew I was going for something else. Something darker. I called Miriam and asked if I could come by to talk. She was concerned, of course. She always liked me more than Dana, if we're being honest. When I got there, she welcomed me in with that same warm smile she always had. Her house felt like a time capsule from a better time. We sat down, and I started telling her everything. The affair, the photos, the confrontation, everything. She listened, shaking her head, clearly disgusted by her daughter's behavior. I knew it, Miriam said, pouring me a glass of wine. I always knew something was off with Clark. I just didn't want to believe Dana could be so reckless. I nodded, sipping the wine, feeling the bitterness rise in my chest. It's more than reckless, Miriam. She's thrown everything away. She's filed for divorce. I didn't even see it coming. Miriam reached across the table and squeezed my hand, her eyes filled with sympathy. I'm so sorry, Victor. You deserve so much better than this. That's when it started. That little spark between us, the one I'd noticed before but never acted on. Miriam had always been good-looking, and after her husband died, she'd become this lonely, vulnerable woman. And me? Well, I was just desperate enough to see an opportunity in that vulnerability. We talked for hours, finishing bottle after bottle of wine, the conversation becoming more personal with each passing minute. I told her things I'd never shared with anyone, how I felt like a fool, how angry I was, how lost I felt. Miriam listened, nodding, offering me comfort that I hadn't realized I craved. And then she opened up too. She told me about her marriage, about how lonely she'd been since her husband passed, how sometimes she wished she'd done things differently. Somewhere along the way, the conversation shifted. Miriam's hand lingered on mine a little longer, her laugh a little softer, her eyes a little more intent. She was flirting with me, and in that moment, it felt like revenge was right there, within reach. I wasn't thinking clearly, and honestly, I didn't care. All I could see was a chance to hurt Dana back, to hit her where it would really sting. Before I knew it, Miriam was leaning in, her lips brushing against mine. I didn't stop her. In fact, I pulled her closer. The whole thing felt surreal, like I was watching it happen from outside my own body. But I wasn't just going to stop at that. No, I wanted to make sure Dana felt this too. I wanted her to see it. I'll be honest, I thought I'd feel something, maybe guilt or regret, when I woke up the next day after what I did with Miriam. But I didn't. I didn't feel anything. I guess when you've been shattered the way I had, there's nothing left but this cold emptiness. What I did wasn't about sex, it wasn't about attraction. It was about power. About taking back control over my life after Dana ripped it apart. I had the video saved in multiple places. I wasn't about to lose my leverage. And that video was exactly what I needed to make Dana feel even a shred of what I was feeling. When you're betrayed like that, it's like your mind goes to places you never thought you'd go. It's not even about right or wrong anymore. It's about making them pay. The next day, I sat down and waited for Dana to come home. The plan was already set in motion. When she finally walked in, I didn't even bother with small talk. I got straight to the point. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady, too calm for the storm that was about to hit. She raised an eyebrow, clearly thinking this was going to be another argument about the divorce or her affair. But she had no idea what was coming. I pulled out my phone and played the video. The look on her face as she saw it? Priceless. Her eyes widened, and her lips parted, but no words came out. She was in shock, completely frozen. "Do you see this, Dana?" I said, still calm, my finger hovering over the play button. "This is your mother. And me. Together." Her face went white as a sheet. She snapped out of it just long enough to snatch the phone out of my hand, but it didn't matter. I had the video saved everywhere. She could destroy that phone, but it wouldn't change a thing. "You're a sick fuck," she spat, her voice trembling with a mix of rage and fear. "How could you do this? How could you?" I cut her off. "I'm not the one who started this, Dana. You did. You threw our marriage away, and you didn't care. You didn't care about me. You didn't care about what we built together. So don't act like you're the victim here." She was shaking, her fists clenched. "This is disgusting. You're disgusting. How could you even, my mother?" I didn't flinch. I wasn't about to let her twist this around. "Let's be clear, Dana. This isn't about your mother. This is about you. And the fact that I'm done playing nice. You see, I've got this video on multiple devices. And if you don't agree to give up your share of the house, I'm going to make sure it goes viral. Everyone will see it. Your friends, your coworkers, your family. And yeah, your mother too. Think about how that will play out. Think about what people will say." She just stood there, staring at me, her eyes burning with hatred. But underneath that rage, I saw it, the fear. She was trapped, and she knew it. She knew I wasn't bluffing. "You wouldn't," she whispered, her voice barely audible. It wasn't a question. It was more like she was trying to convince herself that I wasn't capable of doing something so fucked up. "I will," I replied, not a flicker of doubt in my voice. "And you know I will." She shook her head, her eyes filling with tears, but I didn't give a damn. This was the same woman who had torn my heart out and stomped on it without a second thought. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. "Please, Victor," she said, her voice breaking. "Don't do this. You don't have to do this." I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. You should have thought about that before you fucked Clark. You should have thought about that before you decided you were too good for our marriage. Now, this is your reality. You sign over the house, and I keep the video to myself. Don't, and I'll make sure everyone knows what you and your mother have been up to." Dana's tears were falling freely now, and for a split second, I almost felt something, pity maybe. But it passed just as quickly as it came. She deserved this. She deserved every bit of it. "What's it going to be?" I asked, my voice cutting through her sobs. She didn't answer right away. She was pacing the room, rubbing her temples, muttering to herself. I could tell she was desperately trying to find a way out, but there wasn't one. She was stuck, and she knew it. After what felt like forever, she stopped, looked at me, and said, "Fine, I'll sign. Just don't release the video." I nodded. Good choice. The next day, we met with the lawyers. She signed the papers, giving up her claim to the house. I didn't feel bad, not even a little. In fact, there was a part of me that felt victorious. Like I'd won something in this fucked up game we were playing. She had betrayed me, and I had made sure she paid for it. When it was all said and done, I watched her walk out of the lawyer's office, her shoulders slumped, looking like a shell of the woman I used to know. And for a second, I thought about what could have been, how we might have ended up if she hadn't cheated, if she hadn't torn everything apart. But then I reminded myself of what she'd done, and all those what-ifs disappeared. I had the house. I had my revenge. But did it make me feel better? Not really. In the end, it was just a hollow victory. But at least I knew that Dana wouldn't walk away unscathed. At least I knew she'd carry the weight of this betrayal for the rest of her life. After Dana signed the papers and handed over her rights to the house, I thought I'd feel, I don't know, something more? Satisfaction? Vindication? Maybe some kind of twisted joy from seeing her finally get what she deserved. But instead, all I felt was this heavy emptiness, like I'd been carrying this enormous weight for so long. And now that it was gone, there was just nothing. The victory was fleeting. Sure, I'd won in the sense that I'd gotten what I wanted. The house was mine, Dana was out of my life, or at least it's what I told myself, and I'd hit her where it hurt. But that hollow feeling wouldn't go away. It clung to me, gnawing at my insides, making me question if any of it had really been worth it. I couldn't stand being in that house anymore. Every corner, every room reminded me of her, of us, the life we built together, now shattered and tainted by betrayal. The kitchen where we used to cook together, now just a reminder of all the nights I spent eating alone while she was out with Clark. The living room, where we'd once cuddled on the couch watching movies, now felt like a tomb filled with memories I wanted to bury. Staying there was impossible. I had to get out, so I made the decision. I was going to sell the house. I didn't need it, and honestly, I couldn't stomach living there any longer. It had become this monument to everything I'd lost. The betrayal, the lies, the years I'd wasted. Selling it felt like the only way to truly start over. But the process wasn't easy. Putting it on the market was one thing, but the memories that came flooding back every time I walked through those doors were relentless. Every time I showed the house to potential buyers, I found myself thinking about all the what-ifs. What if Dana hadn't cheated? What if we just worked through our problems instead of letting them fester? What if I hadn't become the man I never wanted to be? The guy who blackmailed his own wife and slept with her mother out of revenge. Yeah, those thoughts hit hard. I tried drowning it all out. Work, booze, whatever I could do to distract myself. But eventually it caught up with me. One night, after a few too many drinks, I found myself sitting alone in the empty house, staring at the walls, surrounded by nothing but silence. It was deafening. That's when I knew something had to change. I couldn't keep doing this to myself. The house, the memories, the constant reminders, it was suffocating. I started reaching out to old friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years because Dana and I had drifted into our own little world. It was like I'd forgotten how to be me outside of that marriage. But reconnecting with them felt like a lifeline. They didn't judge me for what happened. They just listened, supported me, and tried to help me see that life after divorce wasn't the end. One night, we were all sitting around a fire, drinking and talking, when one of my buddies, Mark, turned to me and said, "You know what you need, man? You need to get the hell out of here. Clear your head. Get away from all this shit for a while. Take a trip. see something new. At first, I laughed it off. A trip? I could barely keep my head straight, and he thought going on vacation was going to fix things? But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. What did I have to lose? The house was in the process of being sold. My life here felt like it was in shambles, and staying put was only making things worse. Maybe a trip was exactly what I needed. I started looking into it. Europe, somewhere far enough that it didn't feel like I was running into the same old shit, but close enough that it wasn't a complete escape from reality. I figured I'd do the whole cliché thing. Italy, France, Spain. Maybe even head up to Scotland and see the places I'd always talked about visiting but never made time for. I had the money. I had the time. And now, I had nothing keeping me here. The decision was made. I was going to pack my bags, leave the past behind, and try to figure out who the hell I was outside of the wreckage Dana had left me in. It wasn't just about running away. It was about breaking free. From the house. From the memories. From the person I'd become during the whole mess. As I started planning the trip, I felt this strange sense of hope, like maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for something better on the other side of all this. The house would be sold soon, and with it, I could finally cut the last ties to that chapter of my life. It was time to go. Time to find out who I was again. Selling the house was like lifting a weight off my chest. Once the paperwork was finalized, I felt like I could finally breathe again. The house that had once been a symbol of everything I thought I had was now nothing more than a painful reminder of betrayal. Letting it go wasn't easy, but I knew it had to be done. It was the first step in leaving behind the mess Dana had left me in. And once the money hit my account, I didn't hesitate. I booked a flight to Europe and got the hell out of there. Landing in Italy felt like stepping into another world. The colors, the sounds, the people, everything was so alive, so different from the suffocating familiarity of back home. I didn't have a set plan, just a rough idea of the places I wanted to see. Rome, Florence, Venice. I figured I'd start with the touristy spots and then see where the road took me. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel weighed down by the past. I wandered through ancient streets, stood in awe of breathtaking art, and sat in cafes, watching people go by without a care in the world. There was something freeing about being anonymous, about not having to worry about running into anyone who knew the old me. Here, I wasn't Victor, the guy whose wife cheated on him. I was just another traveler, a nobody, and I liked that. As the days turned into weeks, I started to feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. The anger, the bitterness, the betrayal. It was still there, but it wasn't all-consuming anymore. It was like the farther I got from that house, from Dana, the lighter I felt. I started to remember who I used to be before everything fell apart. Not the bitter, vengeful person I'd become, but the man who loved life, who embraced the adventure. And that's when I met her. It was in Florence, in one of those small, tucked-away art galleries that only the locals seemed to know about. I was wandering through the place, not really paying attention, when I saw her in Nissa. She was sitting in the corner, working on a canvas, completely absorbed in her art. Her dark hair was pulled up messily, and her hands were smeared with paint. She had this air about her, like she was floating through life on her own terms, free from all the bullshit most people carry around. I don't know what it was, but something about her drew me in. Maybe it was the fact that she seemed so completely opposite of everything I'd just been through. Where Dana was cold, calculated, and distant, Anissa was warm, chaotic, and full of life. I found myself walking over to her, and before I knew it, we were talking. She was an artist, of course, Italian, born and raised in the heart of Florence. She lived in this tiny apartment above the gallery and spent her days painting, sculpting, and just creating. It was like she saw the world differently, like she could find beauty in the smallest, most mundane things. We talked for hours that day, and by the end of it, I knew I wanted to see her again. Over the next few weeks, Anissa and I became inseparable. We'd spend our days exploring the city, visiting art galleries, or just sitting by the river, talking about everything and nothing. She had this way of looking at life that was so refreshing, so different from the cynical way I'd been seeing things. She didn't care about the past. She didn't care about my baggage. She was just present. And for the first time, I realized that maybe I could be, too. She helped me rediscover parts of myself that I thought were lost forever. The part of me that still believed in happiness, in love, in the idea that life didn't have to be filled with anger and resentment. She showed me that it was okay to let go, to leave behind the grudges and the pain, and to start fresh. One night, we were sitting on the rooftop of her apartment, watching the sunset. She had her sketchbook out, doodling away, and I was just there, peaceful. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't thinking about Dana or the house or the revenge. I was just existing in the moment, with this incredible woman beside me. And I realized something: I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. The whole revenge thing? It had been a short-lived satisfaction, but it hadn't healed me. Anissa, though? Being with her, being away from everything that had happened, that was what was healing me. I turned to her and said, "You know, I never thought I'd be able to let it all go. The anger, the bitterness. I thought it was just part of me now. But here, with you, I don't feel that anymore." She smiled, that beautiful, carefree smile of hers, and said, "Life is too short to hold on to pain, Victor. You have to let it go, or it'll consume you." And she was right. I'd spent so much time wrapped up in my own anger, letting Dana's betrayal define me. But now, here I was, halfway across the world, with a woman who made me feel alive again. And for the first time, I realized that my happiness didn't depend on getting even. It didn't depend on making Dana pay for what she'd done. My happiness depended on me, on my ability to start fresh, to move forward, and to let go of all the shit that was holding me back. By the time my trip was over, I was a different person. The man who'd left to escape his past wasn't the same man who was returning. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I was free. Free from Dana. Free from the past. Free from the version of myself I didn't recognize anymore. And I had Anissa to thank for that. She'd shown me that life was still full of possibility, that I could still find happiness, even after everything that had happened. She didn't just help me rediscover parts of life I'd forgotten. She helped me rediscover me.